Works for me. Hello, everyone, and welcome down to episode number 80 of the Down South Photo Show. With me, Brendan Waits, here in Ocean Grove, Victoria, Australia, unlike my background. And the other guy in the other screen or in your other ear, if you are listening to the show, it's Cam Blake in Hobart, Tasmania. Good to see you, Cam.
Good to see you, Brendan. It's feels like it's been months since we've both spoken.
That's right.
But it's only been 2 weeks.
We probably should apologise to our viewers and listening audience for having a week off, but we had a week off.
Yeah, every time we have a week off, I always get a message from someone. I won't name names, but someone sometimes sends me, not all the time, but they send me a blank YouTube screen.
Right.
And just go, "Where are you?" I'm like, "All right, okay."
So it wouldn't be someone with the initials TP, would it?
No. Did you hear what happened to TP?
What happened to TP?
TP got engaged.
Oh, congratulations, TP.
Well, to be honest, I'm in shock that someone would say yes.
Yeah, very cryptically, I sent him a Facebook Messenger message that said, "Congratulations," and he replied back, "For what?" And I just went, "I don't know now."
Is it all a hoax? Anyway, we don't talk about TP and we don't talk about that other podcast that doesn't mention us. No. Rumor has it they're actually stopping. They're shutting down the show. That's what I heard today.
I would be too. When you can't keep up with us,
Yeah, that's from the horse's mouth.
That's just what happens. That's fine.
Anyway.
Now, you've been a busy beaver. We've both been busy beavers, but you have in particular with some workshop tours and stuff like that you've been, and that's why we haven't been able to converse. Yeah. I think last week when we tried to record, you were on Flinders Island?
I was on Flinders Island. We could have almost recorded, but it was just a bit sketchy with the reception.
Yeah.
And of course, we run a high quality show here. I didn't want to cut corners or run the risk of being, all the way through the show. So
yeah, exactly. Or run the risk of me not hitting record.
Yeah. Well, guess what? I've only just pressed record on the audio, but you might have to you might have to pick that up off the other recording.
No,
anyway.
That's fine. I'm a wizard with that sort of stuff these days. Cam, you know this.
Sure thing.
Right. So Flinders Island followed closely by.
Flinders Island came back for a day. Then I was off to the Tarkine. Back for a day, off to Bruny Island tomorrow. So crikey, I'm starting. I'm feeling pretty tired. I'm pretty knackered. But I'll get a relatively decent sleep tonight. Bruny Island's a small little workshop, so that should be okay. But
yeah,
and then after that, I think we're a week off or so. Then we're up to you. I think.
Hasn't that rolled around quickly?
Yeah. That's crazy. Nuts. Yeah.
King's birthday weekend, long weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Sorry, both sold out, folks. But anyway, we will put our heads together and probably launch the summer version of that again at some point. So stay tuned.
Yeah. So we got so I get back on the 28th. So yeah, we've got a little bit of time. We've got a couple of weeks before that. So
very good.
I'm looking forward to them. We're not here to plug workshops, though, are we?
We're not. We did enough of that in the last episode.
Yeah.
Bruny Island, that's a close one for you. Yes, sorry, you're going to say.
I was just going to say, just on that Murray Mallee workshop from October the 12th to 16th,
yes.
We had 2 spots left. I reckon those 2 spots are going to go in the next 2 weeks, is my guess.
Okay.
Unless people get in quicker, it's first in, first served. But I had some customers on these workshops who are just going back to work out whether or not they can get their horses babysat, and whether or not driving to Swan Hill is too far to go before or after BFOP, whenever it is. So if you're listening to this tomorrow on Friday, the 26th of May, and you were thinking about the Murray Mallee, go book a spot. There's 2 left, but I would suggest they'll be going on soon.
I reckon we'll have those sold up pretty quick. Anyway, as I say, we're not here to plug workshops, but there we are plugging workshops. That's fine. That's what we do. That's good.
We plug stuff.
We've got to pay the bills, right?
Well, we just talking about that, weren't we?
Exactly right. It's that time of the year.
Yeah, it is tax time. Yay.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, how have you been? You've been good? You've been busy too.
Yeah, look, it's been a busy time. So we went through all the Mother's Day kerfuffle, and then sorry, I shouldn't call it kerfuffle.
I was going to say that's probably not the word. That makes
people coming in to
like
print photos for their mums, which was cool. So framing up a lot of stuff. Today I took delivery of 735 kilograms of frames.
A ton of frames, almost.
Just about. That's what it said on the invoice. So the delivery docket.
Is that from our good friend
Profile?
Very good.
So
good.
Profile Frames, who do not sponsor the show, but they should. I move enough of their product. So Australian-made, ready-made frames. So we sell them at Camera and Photo, and they are without question, the best ready-made frames in Australia that I have seen. They're very consistent and their quality is very, very high. So
yeah,
I restocked all my frames after Mother's Day, so I've been busy getting all those up. And
well, it was looking a bit bare the day I was there. I think I mentioned that to you.
It got worse than that when you
right.
But we finally got it all back into stock. So I spent a lot of the day merchandising and got all that done. And then this evening I ran my entry-level SLR workshop, which was great. Had 4 participants tonight.
Yep.
It's a 2-hour workshop that I run at the shop, just basically to get people up and running. It's like proper entry-level workshop where we give you the foundation for better photography. It's always gets very, very well received, and tonight was no exception. So
excellent.
I love it, but it did run late, and then I had to fly home and do the podcast, which I love doing as well. So that's fine. It's all good stuff.
And here I was just waiting for you with bated breath to jump online, just staying up, burning the candle at both ends, just so you can.
That's right.
Run a workshop. Yes.
Yeah, I'll just ignore that. Backgrounds. Shall we tell everyone where our backgrounds are?
Yeah. Why not? Go first.
I'll go first.
You go first. Okay. Yeah.
Let me just switch to that mode there. So, hang on. I've got to cover it up, don't I? There we go. Where the hell am I? Oh, this is in Tasmania. This is in the Derwent Valley in Tasmania. So when I was down there after I did the overland, I had 4 days down there with the Fam Bam, and we went and did a bit of cruise. We actually covered quite a bit of territory out of Hobart. It was cool.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed going up to the Derwent Valley. So we headed up to Mount Field, which you go through the Derwent Valley to get to, Mount Field National Park. Spent the sort of, a few hours there. And then on the way back, of course, we had all the golden light coming through, the incredible autumn colours that you get in the Derwent Valley. And this was a spot that, I don't know, Cam, did you tip me off about this spot? I can't remember. I think you might.
I don't think I actually did tip you off about that spot. I told you to go out that way, but I think that lookout you found all by yourself.
Okay.
But you're
right. I did. Yeah. So I came back up. This is sort of between the Derwent Valley and the highway.
I can tell you it's right between a town called Bushy Park.
Yes.
And most people, you can go via New Norfolk and out through Bushy Park to get to Mount Field, or you can also go out through New Norfolk, but you cross over the other side of the river and then you go up and then go around. There's 2 ways to get out to Mount Field, and you came back one way, and that's probably the nicest view of the Derwent Valley there. You've done well.
Oh, it's a magnificent spot. I got some great photos from there, and as I say, I had the family with me. They loved it. It was for the first time. I think my kids are old enough now to appreciate it.
Yep.
And my son was actually standing there with me, who's 14. And he was like, you really like this stuff, don't you, Dad? And it's like, yeah, son. And he's like, I think I can see why.
Yeah. It is good when you get a scene that maybe, for lack of a better word, non-photographers can go, oh, wow, that's really pretty.
Yeah.
Then you know they get it. Yeah.
You're probably doing something right.
Yeah, because most of the time they look at us and like, what are you looking at? What are you taking photos? What are you taking photos of? I don't see what you're seeing. So
yeah, my wife does that all the time. She's like, "What? Oh, okay, yeah, okay, I see it. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Your background, Cameron?
My background quickly. I'll cover that up if I can. So this is from the Tarkine workshop. This is about 3 days ago. This is a nice little walk down to a place called Lake Chisholm. They're all sinkhole lakes in that region. It's a very big sinkhole region. But this walk is just incredible all the way down to the lake, and it's got some beautiful man ferns you can see in the background. But the thing I like about this little walk is those ferns, the little ground ferns, you don't really get them anywhere else in the Tarkine apart from this walk. And they just look really cool, and they go all different colors and stuff like that. So there was a nice bit of light filtering through, nice big tree root on the left-hand side. And yeah, just explaining I was sort of explaining to the guests there that, look for the light that you see. So if you see some light on the side of this tree where we are, there's really nice light down there, sort of exposed for that light, and the rest sort of just does what it has to do. We had a really nice day there. We had a lot of rain. We had rain almost every day in the Tarkine, which worked really well. The forests, they're just spectacular. And the fungi, like the amount of fungi we saw, like we did this walk. It's called the Julius River Walk. It's about a 500-meter, 600-meter circuit, just a circuit around this beautiful forest. We spent 2.5 hours there, and 2 customers of mine, wonderful customers, from the car got no further than 50 meters for the 2.5 hours, because it was just fungi galore all the way
And
down.
I bet you they got hundreds of photos.
They got hundreds of photos. One of the ladies, Frances, had the new 90mm macro Olympus Pro lens. So she was playing with that. Victoria, another customer, she was using her 60mm macro, and she had a bit of a play with the new IM1 that I had as well. So, but yeah, the Tarkine's great. It's an amazing spot. If you haven't been there's actually, while we're there, and this wasn't planned, there's a show on Channel 7, it was called Outsiders or something like that. It was a whole episode on the Tarkine with Bob Brown and Charles Woolley.
No, I saw that advertised. I want to catch up with that.
Yeah, so do I. We didn't get to watch it. It was going on in the background the other day, and we're like, oh, that's the episode about this thing where we are, and we never got around to it. But I actually saw Charles Woolley in Rosebery the day that he was filming that. He was in the main street, and I was doing another trip. A nice guy. It's Spotlight. It's called the show Spotlight.
Okay. It must be what happens when you go to Tasmania. You meet Charles Woolley, because I met him in Hobart as well.
Well, on your trip that you just did?
No, on my honeymoon in 2001.
Oh, right. Okay. He probably moves pretty slow.
Yeah, well,
that's right. It was actually funny. We were in the main street, and this is on the trip that I did with Seng a couple of weeks ago.
Yep. And
we're walking through Rosebery, and we're walking up the street. I'm like, there's all these film crews they were sticking these big suction caps on the front of the car window and stuff like that. And Charles Woolley was sitting in the driver's seat, and he looked over and we're like, hey, as you do. Hey, mate, how you going? Yeah. And he goes, I feel like a bloody queen in doing this here. And I said, king, you mean? He goes, oh, yes, king. So because you don't look like a queen. And we had a bit of a chuckle. But yeah, so yeah, if you want to watch something, look up the Tarkine, Channel 7, Spotlight. It's all about the importance of that region. Yeah,
you've been telling the listeners a lot about the Tarkine, and in your own little way, you highlight the importance of these areas by taking people there to photograph them and showing them what they're all about. I've definitely got a new appreciation for the wilderness in Tasmania after our little jaunt a few weeks ago.
Yeah, which
it sort of opened my eyes to just how stunning it really is.
Well, for those that are interested, again, this is not a plug, but next April, you and I are going to be doing something in the Tarkine in the Cradle Mountain area.
I'm very excited. Are we leaking this already?
I don't know. I'm so
tired.
I'm so tired. I could be leaking myself. I wouldn't know. Yeah, that's a teaser of maybe a Tarkine Cradle thing, maybe next April sometime.
Yes, I'm very excited in great anticipation of that. Let's talk photography. It's only been 48 minutes since we started the show, so we might as well.
Better than another show where they talk for 5 hours and don't talk about anything.
I thought it'd be an interesting, what's the word I'm looking for? Interesting thing to do. An interesting thing to do to rebuild our photography kits. So, like we're going like a hypothetical where if we wanted to restart, so basically someone stole all our gear, everything we own,
bastards.
Today they just gone.
Right.
Where would we start? What would we rebuild it with? Like, would we rebuild it with what we've already got? Would we look somewhere else? Would we? Money is no object.
I was going to say, do we have a budget? No,
money's no object, because I think, well, okay, maybe we could do two kits. Maybe we could do a budget kit, and maybe we can do a dream kit.
Right.
If you like.
Okay.
It'd be, an interesting exercise is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it would be interesting. I think if you want me to go first, I can start crapping on.
I want you to go first, but I want you to go with the budget angle. And the reason I say that is because we get asked a lot, you do and I do, about
yes, we do.
What camera should I buy? What lens should I get? What, so it'll be interesting to see where you take it and where I take it. But let's start with you.
So give us a roughish shot of budget. You're not talking, you're talking camera lenses and stuff like that.
I'm not talking $80 here. No.
Yeah. You're talking like under 10,000 or something like that.
No. I'm gonna say under 2,000.
Under 2,000.
So you've got $2,000 to spend on a kit that will keep you in the business of being a landscape photographer. Cameron, what do you buy? And this is unscripted and off the cuff.
Totally unscripted.
Where would you go with it? Where would you start?
I think I would stay true to what I had stolen. I would stay true to probably still getting an Olympus kit.
Yep.
I would do something like the EM1 Mark II.
Yep.
And the 12mm f2 little fixed focal length lens. If I was purely just going to go do landscape, and I wasn't having to worry about maybe doing commercial or weddings and all that kind of jazz.
Yep.
We
want to go with the landscape theme because
because it's a landscape. About. Yeah. So I would go the EM1 Mark II with the 12mm f2 lens. I think that's a really great little light, compact, cheap kit that will give you excellent results in that field of landscape.
That 12mm f2 lens. So for those playing along at home, so Olympus, or OM System as they're now called, but they were called Olympus when they made the OM1 Mark II. So let's call them Olympus. They use the micro 4/3 sensor. So it's a compact sensor in these cameras, which gives you a 2 times multiplying effect to your lens. So a 12mm f2 lens is effectively a 24mm f2 lens. So still pretty wide. I think 24mm is a pretty versatile landscape.
I reckon 24mm is almost my most common focal length for landscape.
Right.
So yeah.
Why do you reckon that is? Any ideas?
I think I know it took me a while, and this is probably me just in general, but it took me a while to change to what, like there was a big shift to really ultra wide lenses at some stage. So it went from traditionally sort of being 24, 21mm, and then it started going like to 18 and 16mm, where you get these super wide shots. And I always sort of frayed away from them. And I think it comes back to the film days. I think I used to shoot a lot of my 24mm Zuko lens on my film camera. I love that lens. And it just gave me enough width, gave me enough to play with. They were generally a really good sort of lens to have. And you could sort of get a fair bit in your shot, like waterfalls or portrait or landscape, whatever you wanted to do. So 24mm to me was pretty good. If I look now, though, if I quickly go back to my photos and have a look at the last couple of years, 21mm is probably my most common.
Oh, right.
But I very rarely go more wider than that.
Yeah.
So 24mm I think would give you enough for landscapes, whether or not it's a forest, a beachscape, a waterfall, whatever it might be.
I reckon the 24mm, well, I stand to be corrected here, but as far as I can tell, is the one that most closely mimics the human's vision. Now, I'm not talking peripheral, I'm talking vision straight in front of you. I reckon if you put your hands out like that and you're looking, it looks around that 24mm angle.
Yeah, so, I thought, and I might be wrong, and you might be wrong, we might both be wrong. I thought the human eye was around about 35mm. 38
maybe I'm counting like too much peripheral vision.
Maybe your brain's got a half sensor or something.
Yeah, like I haven't looked that up, by the way. I'm just looking and saying, okay, that looks about 24mm.
I actually think it's more than that now. I think it's about 43, 44mm, which is what I normally see. Yeah,
that's pretty tight.
It is pretty tight. But 24mm EM1 Mark II, and I just did a quick Google search on what it's worth.
Yep,
and I reckon I've scraped in under $2,000.
Yeah. Okay. So, what you would push your budget and get that camera and just the one lens?
If I was purely doing landscape, if landscape was my only thing, I would. And then if I could get one secondhand, though, if I could, I would chuck in a second lens, which would be the 75mm 1.8 Olympus lens.
Yeah, nice.
which is a 150 equivalent.
Yep.
Those two lenses would sort you out for landscape photography forever.
Yep. Well, there you go. There's a pro tip for you folks. If you're looking to, get into landscape photography and shoot the way this guy does, then Olympus OM1 Mark II.
Well, to give you an idea as well, that really quite popular Aurora shot I did of the tessellated pavement.
Yes.
EM1 Mark II 12mm f2 lens.
There you go. And
so many shots around that sort of era, like 5-6 years ago, that I put out there that did really well were all shot on that combination. It was almost like shooting fish in a barrel with that combination. It's like, there's an next shot, bang. There's another good shot, bang.
Yeah.
But yeah, that 75-1.8, I reckon you could squeeze that in secondhand under $2,000, that whole kit.
It's a good setup. And it's funny you should. Well, I was just thinking while you were talking there, what I actually used for probably the last a good part of the last 10 years. And that was my trusty old Nikon D5200 with the 10 to 20. And seriously, man, I should have spot welded that lens to the front of the camera. I never took it off. It was always there when I was shooting. Now, Nikon being a little bit different in terms of their sensor, because they use the APS-C size sensor. So you get a 1.6 times multiplier. So 10 mil was 16 mil. So 10 to 20, so 16 to 32. Sorry, 16 to 40, roughly. I had the f3.5 version of that lens, which was great for not so much astro or anything like that, but definitely for wide angle. And for relatively low light like sunsets and that sort of stuff. But I reckon you're right. I think I would hanker for an f2 or something like that. But that the Nikon D5200 and a Sigma 10 to 20 lens, I reckon you'd buy that now for $800 total, both, which is incredible. Which then would give you a bit of scope.
You go and get a zoom lens.
I think traditionally I've always invested more money in the glass. So, well, maybe not necessarily the quality of the glass, but just more of it. So what I would do is, definitely look at a zoom lens. If I was going to go to your system, the OM or Olympus system, I think I would look at an EM5 Mark III, the EM5 Mark III,
the new one,
EM1.
The new,
get the 12 mil, as you say, which I do love that lens. And funny you should say, I sold one of those today, the 12 mil f2.
Oh, there you go.
Because a lady asked me what she should get for it. Anyway, long story, we won't go there. I would add though the one that I took on the Overland, which was the 40 to 150, their kit lens. Now, a lot of people are going to go, well, why the hell would you bother? Like, that's a $200 lens. When I was hiking, that was incredibly versatile to have that lens with me and have a focal range of 80 to 300.
That's nuts, isn't it?
It's so good. And look, I mean, the photos that I got using that lens, they're not going to win any awards or whatever. We're going to talk about awards next week, aren't we? Photo comps next week.
Yes, we are going to talk about awards next week.
We have to. There's a teaser for it. But I just found that kit. So I had the 8 to 25 and then the 40 to 150. So I actually had a gap. I didn't even realize that I had a gap, but I did have a gap. But I found that lens so good for just whipping it out and zooming in on, the mist rising off the forest floor that day, that sort of stuff, and isolating scenes in the distance. So this shot behind me, for example, I wanted to isolate one of those poplars, for example.
You
could do that quite comfortably.
That's right.
Actually, that little group of poplars right across there, that'll look pretty cool in isolation. A little bit of red behind them. And that sort of stuff.
Red,
yeah. But anyway, that's if I went to the Olympus system. If I stuck with like a Nikon system, mate, Nikon or Canon, secondhand.
Well, it's interesting.
How many lenses do you want?
Yeah, exactly right. It's interesting though. Like, we've both come up with different camera brands, so to speak, and different cameras. You've gone for 2 zoom lenses. I've gone for 2 fixed focal lenses.
That's right, 2 primes.
2 primes. And the only reason why I would, if I had a limited budget, go prime is generally the prime lenses are sharper and there's less glass and all that kind of stuff. And I also like the challenge of not having, you're restricted. I like the idea of being restricted. And I do it on workshops. We'll probably do it on the Murray Mallee as well, where we'll say to people, right, guess what? For the next hour, you can use 200 mil only. That's it. Start looking differently. And we did it on the Tarkon workshop. We did it on the Flinders Flinders Island workshop. You just put people in a different mode for a while at a different focal length, and you can actually see, like, you can hear the cogs ticking in the head. It's like, okay, what 200 mil? Like, we're doing landscape photography. How am I going to do 200 mil? And within about 5 minutes, people are like, oh, wow, look at that bit on the mountain up there. Bang. Look at that little bit down there. Bang. And so that's where, with that kit, I'd like to keep them fixed focal. And I think that would help my photography improve a bit if I was going to start again, so to speak. Well,
the good thing is they didn't steal your experience.
They didn't steal my knowledge, no.
That's right. They only stole your gear. So,
I just buy an iPhone then.
Well, that's right. Exactly, like I did last year.
That's right.
I tend to agree with you there. That being married to a fixed focal length, particularly the 75, that would be a real challenge. But having, what is it, 75 f2?
No, it's a 1.8.
Holy smokes, 75 1.8.
It's a stunning lens. I'm thinking out loud in my head here because that's what I do. I got to go to Bruny Island for 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
How about I do a challenge of using only those 2 lenses on the OM1 for the whole trip?
Done.
And then we'll put some examples up on the Facebook page, and maybe say,
really well.
Which is going to annoy me because we're doing a boat cruise around the bottom of the island, and where you need a big long lens. Sometimes you watch, there'll be a great bloody whale or jump out of the water.
It'll be the best shot you've never taken.
Be the best shot I've ever seen. I haven't been able to take, but maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll challenge myself. I'll take the OM1, the 12 f2, and the 75 1.8, and that's it for the trip, and that's all I'll shoot. And I think it'll be a good experiment. I think people should try and do that as well. Maybe.
I agree. I think it will open your eyes. And sometimes I'm a lazy photographer. I know I am, but I am prone to sometimes zooming in rather than using my feet, which has ramifications with my images in terms of even in terms of hyperfocal distance, but in terms of using the when you lens compression as well. So zooming in and compressing rather than opening up the subject and actually getting separation where you should. Like all of a sudden now that rock intersects with the horizon, you muppet.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So
it makes a big difference. I think also just while we're talking about that, if people want to share photos of what they do, there's one thing we probably haven't pushed too much on this show. We've got this beautiful, great little community of people, or 535 on YouTube and a whole heap on other things. But we do have a Facebook page. It's the Down South Photo Show Facebook page. If you do want to chuck some photos on that page, like we talk about what we do and where we go and shoot and we show our backgrounds, I'd love to see what people can do. So just get on there. You can post up I think we let people post photos up there. Put it up there. Tell us where it is. Tell us what camera it is. Tell us what you like or don't like about the shot. It'd be great to see a little bit of a collection of viewers and followers' images go up there. So go check it out. It's in the link
I'd love
below
to see
somewhere.
it too. I'd love to see it, and particularly if you've got a shot that you might have battled with and you weren't, you need some advice. Chuck it up there. We'll happily have a look and tell you what we think.
Yeah.
Sometimes it might even be dead honest critique.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Because at the moment, all we've got up there is our boring, crappy photos.
Yeah, exactly. Who needs that?
Nah.
It doesn't really. Okay, so let's switch things up here. Now you don't have a budget. So
now I don't have a budget.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? You start thinking, oh well, I'll get this and this, but hang on a minute, we're still landscape photographers. We still want to stay relatively mobile.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you have, and again, I was talking to the people on the Tarkine about our show, that they were all people that listened in, which is great. But they all said, oh, how much do you script your show? I said, really, we get on like 30 seconds before. We hang shit on each other for about 30 seconds. And
that's right. And then we record.
And I quickly glazed over this today, what the run sheet was going to be. And I saw this and really didn't put much thought to it. But on the Tarkine, I had a really good conversation about the cameras I have. So I've had like Fujis and the Leicas and the Olympus. But if I had an unlimited budget of camera, and I hand on heart, this is going to sound like it's the worst plug of all time, but I would probably still stick with my OM1 at the moment.
Yep.
And I would just buy as many of the pro lenses as I could for that camera, because with the Olympus camera, and it's maybe just something I'm really used to, and I'm sure people use Canon, Nikon, Sony, whatever it might be, they're the same. But I just take more photos and better photos with this system. Like it's hands down stands out with, like, if I look over the history of what I've done over the last 10, 20 years, the greatest shots that I think I've taken have all been on that system. So it works for me. It works for portability, lightweight, weatherproofing. I think the lenses are really nice. I've just been printing a few photos for customers today up to A2 off the Olympus, no problem. So if I had an unlimited budget, I'd still stick with probably the Olympus system I had now. I've got this Leica sitting next to me here, which is worth a squillion dollars.
Yeah.
It's great. The quality is fantastic, but it's a bit cumbersome. It's a lot slower. So that was me, it's a shit answer to the question. I know you're probably looking for me to come out and say something else, but
not at all.
I think I would stick to, and just over the last few weeks, maybe the last month, I've sort of once again fallen in love again with this system that Olympus or OM have brought out, because it just works for what I like to do. I get nice results that I love. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah. I think for me, if the budget was unlimited, so avid listeners will know that I've gone back for the OM system.
Yes.
Look, and without question, there's a lot of your influence in that. I mean,
sorry about
that. Well, part of the reason why, and it's a small reason why I went down that path, is you and I are going to end up doing a few workshops together. We already have. We're doing more.
Yeah.
It would be counterintuitive, I think, for it's great for us to be able to share lenses.
Yeah. And I see you using me for my lenses.
Yeah, of course. That's all it is, Cam. That's exactly right. But having said that, I also think it would be counterintuitive for us both just to stick with one brand. For teaching reasons. So if it were up to me, I would put. I'm going to get some splinters here and be a fence sitter.
For sure.
That OM5 that I've got, I am smitten with that camera. I love it. I think it's awesome. I'm so glad I went for that over the OM1 Mark III, purely for portability, size, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It nailed everything I needed it to nail on the overland, and so far the other shots I've been getting back home, I love it. It's probably because I used Olympus way back in the day, so the learning curve was quite shallow for me.
Yeah.
However, I think I would, if the budget was no option, I do think I would end up with some kind of full frame system. Now, whether that be Sony, Nikon, or Canon, I don't know. The Nikon Z series, the Z8 that's just been launched, is getting very, very good raps.
Is that the
$8,000 talk about one? Price in a minute.
$8,000. Yep.
Remember, I've got unlimited money here.
Yeah.
And it's no secret that the high end Nikon, their nano coated lenses are fantastic, as are the Canon R series lenses.
Yeah.
There's also this little company called Sony that make these Z7. Listen to me, A7 series cameras. So the A7 Mark III, the A7 Mark IV. Their G Master lenses are absolutely phenomenal. They're brilliant.
G for great.
But I'll tell you, that is G for great. I'll tell you the reason I don't have them. It's because they're too freaking expensive.
Yeah, and this it's interesting that you've sort of gone that path a bit as well, because I don't know how many conversations I've had over the last few months about this full frame versus no full frame.
Yep.
And I think there's a real hang up in the industry that people just are still hung up on full frame.
Yeah.
And full frame generally means megapixels. And I just don't, like, someone was talking to me on the other workshop the other day about going to the Canon, the R6, which is a small body.
Yeah.
They spent the money, they bought the camera, and they went, I just want something a bit smaller. And they saved like 150 grams because the lenses were still so big on the front.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like it's interesting that the full frame conversation still comes up these days. Like you've said it 1,000 times. The megapixel race has been run and done. It's overdone. And people, once people accept that, then the other full frame conversation is, well, I can crop a lot heavier if I want. I got more pixels to play with.
Yeah.
And the only comeback I have to that is, well, if that was me, I'd probably change lenses and do it optically and through the camera. Yeah. But it's interesting that full frame still gets airtime. I'm still surprised even now that full frame still gets as much airtime as it does, because I think we've proven, and the proof's in the pudding of what people do. I think it's been proven that Fuji's or the crop sensor Nikons and Canons and all those ones can still create amazing images, able to be printed, and that's it. That's the game. Like, it's as long as you can print them out big and be happy with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, I still think this is why I said I'll get splinters. I'll have a foot firmly in both camps, because I've used both systems and I know they're great. They're both great. But it can sometimes be horses for courses as well. So, for example, if I do think if I was to set up a portrait studio and I was shooting weddings, where skin tones, where detail, particularly on a bride's face, for example, I firmly believe there is no substitute for full frame in that kind of scenario. I think the level of detail that you get, and when you're shooting a wedding, and we're a landscape show, so I get that there's an asterisk here, but when you're shooting portrait work in particular, and you're shooting on the fly like at a wedding, and then you want to edit and you do want to zoom and crop with the image that you've got after the fact, you didn't think to change lenses, or you just didn't have a chance to change lenses, that's where you'll find the majority now of portrait and wedding photographers are shooting full frame. Normally for that reason. But you're not going to take that gear on the overland track. You're not going to take that gear on a hike anywhere. You know, that's where the compact gear of Olympus and their Micro Four Thirds system piss all over it, because they're so much more convenient and easier to travel with.
So a question for you, I'm just thinking, are us as photographers, landscape, weddings, whatever it is, are we buying camera gear to satisfy our own needs, or are we buying camera gear to satisfy what the customer requires?
Both. I think there's a bit of both. There's room for both.
Because I think, you think of wedding photography, portrait photography, all that kind of stuff. And we've had this conversation as well about, photographers don't buy landscape photographs. It's people just walking off the street like it. So a wedding photographer hires me to do a wedding and they get their photos back. They're not thinking, gee, that one looks like it's been cropped in a bit from a full frame shot. They're like, look at the emotion on my face. Look how beautiful I look. Or look at Nan in the back, all these kind of, things that go through their head. The only time that I think it needs to be critical with quality of images or quality of file in regards to sharpness and things like that is if you're doing real high-end commercial work, where the client is going, well, this needs to go on a billboard, and they've got the magnifying glass having a look. But I think these days that photographers are more passionate about fulfilling their own wants out of a camera, instead of maybe looking more externally to saying, who am I shooting for? What am I using the images for? And are they going to care if it's full frame or not full frame, or 1,000 megapixels or 20 megapixels? So I think I think we get a bit bogged down in our own, I guess, full of our own, I don't know, whatever it is, thoughts on what camera we need to get to satisfy what we think we want to do.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I think what you're talking about there a little bit is to do with marketing as well, and the way these cameras are promoted and marketed. You got to look through that. And you've really got to, if you're in the market for new gear or secondhand gear, whatever, you got to sit down and make a list and say, what do I shoot? What do I want to shoot? What's the main thrust behind what I'm doing here? And I think, again, this is a landscape show, so let's stick with that. But, in terms of how good, and we keep coming back to the OM system because we both use it, but how good it is, it's totally fine. For it handles pretty much everything, anything we want to throw at it. There's only been, I can count on one hand, a number of instances where I have, I'm unlikely to go back to some of the places I've been to in the last couple of months, and in that particular light, to shoot it again. So I've only got what I've got, and I reckon there was 5-6 photos from the overland, for example. I'm like, I just wouldn't have minded a little bit more detail, a bit more resolution on that part, so I can zoom and crop. It's by the by, though. I'm still happy with the photo. It's just the extra bit of versatility I would have given. Here's another story for you real quick. A customer came in today. So lovely young lady, just been married, got her wedding photos back. Beautiful. Photographer did a fantastic job. I don't even know who they were, but they did a brilliant job. Some of the photos were great. However, she brought up a photo on the screen on the photo kiosks I've got there. She brought up the photo on the screen. She goes, I absolutely love this photo. It's the best pose that the photographer captured. However, it's this massive wide angle shot, and it's got the church behind them, and they're this big in the frame. And she goes, so I zoomed in on it and all the details gone, And I'm thinking to myself, okay, that's it. I want to check and see what they shot with. And everything was shot on an APS-C size sensor, which kind of surprised me a little bit. The shots were awesome, but they used a small sensored camera. So there's a case in point where had they shot that on full frame, then that versatility would have been there. It was funny though, because she said, oh, it's such a shame because that's my favorite photo. I, of course, talked her into getting a massive canvas, so it didn't matter. Good job. That's right. That's what I do. So
but
it's few and far between the instances of that. Like you said at the top, you've fallen back in love again with that Olympus gear, and there's a reason for that. It's because it's so bloody user friendly and
Yeah.
as versatile as you need it to be.
Exactly. It meets my needs. And that's what I'm trying to get at. Like that camera it's a half frame sensor when you look at it.
Yeah.
But it meets my needs of what I need to do as a working professional photographer.
Yeah.
So I always sort of question myself when I see people go out and buy the biggest full frame they can get for the amount of money, like the new Nikon, the $8,000 camera. People, they're going to buy that just so they can go out and take happy snaps of holidays, or take some nicer shots, or they might be quite proficient at taking landscapes or whatever it might be. And then they don't do anything with them. They just put them on a computer and that's it.
No, that's right.
That's their hobby. That's their hobby, and that's their love, and that's their passion. And if you got the money to spend on the newest and greatest things, then fantastic. But what I think you're saying before about marketing is exactly right. People, and there's that fear of missing out, or you don't want to be the person who doesn't have the full frame. I can remember a classic example when I bought the first Fuji GFX 50, which is the medium format. Yeah. And I was on a tourism junket out to Strawn, out on the west coast here. And they'd flown, Tourism Tassie had flown all these big Instagrammers in from all around Australia to do a 3-day junket. And I was just lucky enough to be invited. And I knew before I went, I had this camera. I'm like, I'm going to take it. And I knew as soon as I would pull it out of the bag, people would be like, oh, what's that? What's that? And we're sitting on this old railway line that goes between Strawn and Queenstown, this old beautiful wilderness railway. And I pulled it out of the bag. And within seconds, it was like bees to a honeypot. What's that? Give me a look at that sensor. How big is that sensor? How big? And I showed them the sensor, and they're like, oh my God, that's incredible. That's the best camera. I'm like, no, it's not. I said, maybe the person using it might be okay. I said, but that's just a tool. It's just a camera. Yes, I've got, you'll be able to crop the shit out of things. I'm like, I don't want to crop the shit out of things. I want to shoot it properly. So it's almost like, like cars. People rock up in a Ferrari and they're like, oh, wow, you must be rich and really famous and do all that kind of stuff. But they don't drive the car properly. They don't put it on a racetrack. They don't do anything like that. So that I always keep coming back to that sort of thing that, I think we need to move away from megapixels, full frames, and all that kind of stuff. I agree with what you're saying about, cropping in for a wedding photo or doing something like that. And, they may be few and far between in scenarios where that happens. But for us landscape photographers, really, I don't think it makes any difference anymore.
Let me give you a scenario. So the photo behind you there, for example, let's say you shot that on your Olympus, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Let's say I stood beside you and I shot the exact same photo on a A7 IV Sony full frame with their G Master 24-70. And then we, by some weird coincidence, happen to have both our photos fully framed in a gallery side by side.
Yep.
Do you think the buyer is going to go, I'll take that one?
I'll tell you what, though, I would put it this way, that if the person was a photographer, a hobbyist, or a photographer hobbyist,
who aren't going to buy it anyway.
Well, they might, but what I reckon would sway them if it had, let's call it Tarkine Forest. Both of us had the same title, Tarkine, Lake Chisholm, blah, 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 shot on Olympus, shot on Sony. I reckon they'd be swayed to go and buy the Sony one because they think it's a better shot. Yeah. It looks exactly the same, but they think it's a better shot because it's on a full frame camera.
Yeah, and if they're a photographer and they know.
If they know gear or have an idea, or if it wrote down the bottom, full frame, 60 megapixels.
Yeah, that's
half frame, 20 megapixels.
Yeah.
Even though it looks the same, people, and this is a human element that we look to go to the better, or we think that the bigger is better type of thing. And I'm telling you, it's not. And people can save themselves a hell of a lot of money, and they can save themselves a hell of a lot of weight, and they can save themselves a hell of a lot of sore shoulders and stuff like that if they just move away from the thought that I need to buy a full frame lens with massive megapixels with big lenses to create lovely photos. You don't. We've proven it. You can do it on iPhones. You can do it on Fuji's, Sony's. It doesn't matter. It's the person using the camera and the knowledge behind the camera that makes the shot better.
That's right. Let's see how far we can get off topic.
Anyway, so back to our cameras. No, but that's it's a really interesting conversation. And again, it's a good question to ask people if they had unlimited money, and people can put it in the comments below. I'd love to see what they come up with.
Yeah.
But if you had unlimited money, just tell us what body you'd buy. What camera body would you buy? And then you can take all the lenses you want with it, but tell us what camera body you would buy and why.
Yeah, and I would argue as well, when it comes to big brands. So Sony, Canon, Nikon, Olympus, Panasonic, Fuji, to a lesser extent, Pentax these days. The body is one thing. Their lens range, if you look across all of those manufacturers, their lens ranges are all pretty much the same.
Yeah. Yeah, they're. Yeah.
Yeah, and Sony bang on about G Master, Canon bang on about L series, Nikon bang on about their nano coating lenses and all. What are they called? ED or whatever they're called.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
extra low dispersion.
That's it. It's so hard you can't get the old struck match between them. Like they're so similar.
Yeah.
And again, will it make an iota of difference to the end result when someone's looking to purchase your photos? Or what have you got there? Cam, for those listening, has just flashed a lens up on the screen.
So this is a Leica 21mm f3.5 lens. Lovely. It's a $5,000 lens. It looks like a $10 cheapo lens from the 1960s. I put that up against, when I had a few cameras in my possession, I put that up against my 100mm GFX 23mm lens.
Yep.
And I put it up against that Olympus 12mm lens. And I took the same shot, put them on a screen, left them at not 100%, didn't zoom in, didn't zoom back, sat back. And the only difference I could tell was a little bit of difference in color.
Yep.
Like from a distance, I couldn't say, geez, that's a lot sharper. That looks amazing. No. Yep. So yeah. It's funny.
Let's end this here. I've told this story before, but I went on an Olympus Day when I used to work for Camera House, and when on Olympus Day, we went to, where did we go to? Werribee Zoo, the open plain zoo, whatever it's called.
Not the Werribee shit farms.
No, the Werribee Zoo. And then we went, so we all got our photos at the zoo. We had giraffes and lions and hippos and all the whole bit. And then we went back to some hotel in near South Bank, and we sat there and we had a little conference and we looked at the photos, and they all said, okay, give us your best photos. So we did that. And then they printed it on this super glossy paper, this Epson brilliant, like in A1, big things, right? And they brought my photo that I took and they put it down in front of me and they handed me a magnifying glass.
How dare they?
And they said, here, have a look. And I said, why?
Yeah.
And they said, oh, so you can see that. I said, who does that?
Yeah.
Well, what's, because I've been selling photos for a long time, and I'm like, people don't do this. No. Nobody cares.
That's right.
It's all about correct viewing distance, not what you're trying to do here.
Yeah.
It's all about, you put that canvas print or that frame photo on the wall, no one walks up to it within 3 millimeters and goes, oh, goodness me, that's sharp. Yeah. They take the whole scene in. That's how you shot it in the first place. So that just solidifies and validates your point that it ain't what you got, it's how you use it.
No.
And
being a male, we all know that.
Exactly right. Shall we move on?
Well, one last point. I will wait. One little last point on that as well.
Last point.
Last point. I've seen it over the last few months that people, and love them to death, they come on the workshops and they learn and that we have a great time. But they take the photo, they replay the photo, the first button. What do you think the first button is after the play button? The scrolling zoom thing. They zoom in. And I keep telling these people, you're zooming in on a digital file on the back of a low resolution screen, one. Mm-hmm. Two, you're zooming into like 1,000%. Everything is soft at 1,000%.
Yeah.
So if that's you, if you're out there pixel peeping after every shot, stop. Leave it at 100%. Make sure the composition's good. Make sure you've got everything framed up nice. Make sure you got your polarizer turned the right way.
Yeah.
Get it right. And then when you get to your computer, pixel peep away, but don't do it in field.
Yeah.
I'm leaving it at that.
Well done. Nice.
Thanks.
I think we can pass the gear talk thing because we've just basically ticked that off. We got a photography horror story, Cam.
I saw that. Is that real or did you make it up? Did you make this up? It's real.
This is from Louise in Oxley, Queensland. My brother lives in Oxley.
Right. Go ahead. I'm going to Google map where Oxley is.
Yeah, it's in the western suburbs of Brisbane.
Right, yeah.
Hi, guys. Here's a horror story for you. Thanks, Louise. If you have a horror story, please send us in. In 2019, I was lucky enough to go on a photography expedition to Antarctica.
Ooh. I'm jealous already.
One of my students tonight is off to Antarctica in January. After 4 days of taking once-in-a-lifetime shots, I was in the Zodiac boat. That's a little inflatable thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Heading back to the main ship when we came across a flock of penguins. I quickly grabbed my camera out of my backpack and then proceeded to somehow fumble and drop the entire pack overboard in Antarctica, no less.
Ooh.
Lucky for me, a quick thinking passenger managed to snag my pack with an oar before it completely sank out of view. My 70 to 200 was a write-off, but my used memory cards were retrievable. I honestly thought I'd lost everything, including all the photos, which is all I really cared about.
Wow.
It's sort of a horror story
with a semi-good ending.
Saved from the horror.
I think I've spoken about this recently about memory cards, and you know, just how someone asked me the other day what version of SanDisk memory cards I buy, and I said, I think they're the Extreme or whatever they are, but I said they're almost bulletproof these days. You put them through the wash and all that kind of stuff. That's obviously gone into salt water, and survived. So I can imagine. I don't know Louise, obviously, or maybe I do. I don't think I do. It's not Louise from The Walk, is it? No,
she lives in Queensland though.
I think yeah. Hi to Louise from The Walk. You can just imagine the heart rate went pretty high once that happened, because that's not where you want to be losing anything.
Oh, but I'd be exactly the same. I couldn't give a stuff about the gear. I want the photos. Like, I'm not going back to Antarctica.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's good. Very good. But you notice that it's a 70 to 200, so clearly it's a Canon. Too heavy, fell off.
Yeah.
But I'm very jealous. Antarctica is on my list to do in the next 10 years, I reckon.
Nice. If you have a photography horror story, or if you have a deer cam story, a question as well, feel free. Don't have a deer cam this week, but that's fine. We don't get them every week. That's fine. Shall we mention beer donations?
I think we have to this week.
Yes, please.
We are no longer malnourished. We so we have 2 beer donations this week. Mel and David. David actually chucked in a slab. So
David.
Give it up for David.
Good work, Dave.
Well done, David. So yeah, thank you. If you'd like to shout us a beer, you can start with a can, a pot, or a 6-pack, or a slab. But
that's right.
David's going to keep us going for at least the next week, I reckon. So that's awesome. And
a beer donation guarantees a shout out.
You get a shout out. So yeah, if you want a shout out, maybe Chelsea should buy us a beer. I wonder if Chelsea listens anymore.
Maybe I should buy us one. See if I get a shout out to my own show.
Well, you're starting to get shout outs in the horror stories and the deer cam.
I know, right?
And Brendan. So you've taken over that. But
that's right.
Yeah, I wonder if Chelsea would buy us a beer. I don't know what's going on with Chelsea these days. She very rarely talks to me.
That's a lot of shout outs for Chelsea. She gets more mentions than Mel.
Chelsea's got something. Chelsea's got something exciting going on at the moment. I know that for a fact, but I am not in a position to make that kind of call. So I shall shut up.
Very good. What's coming up? Cam. You're off to Bruny Island tomorrow.
I got a massive day off, and then today day off, and then Bruny Island for 3 days. So it's a nice little short one. It's going to be wet and windy, but we are doing. If anyone's ever coming down to Tassie, and you're not sure what you want to do, even if it's a weekend or a long time you're here, the Pennicott boat tours. They go out of Hobart, they go out of Bruny, and they go out of now down near Port Arthur. And they also go to Wilson's Promontory. They run a trip at Wilson's Promontory now. They are like I'm going to say a 30 seat speedboat that goes all the way around the bottom of Bruny Island, all the way down to Tasman Island. They are one of the best things you can do in Tasmania.
I've seen these things.
Yeah, like I think they're about $150 for the trip. It's about a 3 or 4 hour trip, but you go all the way around the highest sea cliffs in Australia. You see seals, dolphins, albatross, eagles, if you're lucky, whales. The other day they saw orcas just last week. We're going to do that on Sunday, so that's a real highlight of this trip. But we're down there for 3 days.
Is there any limitations with what camera gear you can take?
Not really, but you don't want to be changing lenses. So it is a bit bumpy, like it's a speed boat type of thing. But they do stop the boat and they float around. You get shots. You stop 1,000 times along the way. All these amazing sort of parts of the coastline. So it's going to be a bit wet and wild. We're on Bruny Island, but we're hoping to maybe do some astro and fingers crossed an aurora at the Bruny Island Lighthouse, which is quite popular.
Fantastic.
But that might not happen. But the lighthouse and the views will be nice and moody. They also have albino wallabies on the island.
Awesome.
I'll hopefully get one of those with my 75mm camera, because that's all I'm taking.
Nice. Just going back to your boat, if you can't change lenses, could you take 2 bodies?
Yep, you could take 2 bodies.
Yep. That's what I'd be doing.
It's a tricky one though, because you go under these huge sea cliffs, like they're 400 meters above you, and they park the boats right under. So you need a wide angle to shoot them all.
Yeah.
But then when they turn the boat around, there's an albatross flying a kilometer in front of you. You need a long lens.
2 bodies.
So 2 bodies would be good.
I'm taking my 8 to 25 and my 100 to 400 when I do it.
Yeah, that'd be pretty much 8 to 25. And I'd probably might take the 300 F4 I've got.
So, nice.
Yeah, but if you get too close to things, you're a bit screwed. So you might be right. Maybe the 100 to 400.
And
that's cheaper in case, like Louise, you drop it off the edge.
That's right.
You're only losing a 100 to 400, not a 300 F4.
Yeah, exactly. So, awesome. All right. Well, I guess that's the show. That's
what are you doing? Are you doing nothing?
Oh, well, good question. Thank you. Yeah, busy, always busy. You know me. Loads more printing. Got quite a substantial canvas order to get through. Scanning, Cameron.
Right. Like
scanning so much.
Like negatives and slides.
Negatives, prints. I've got literally a shoebox of prints to scan tomorrow. For a lady's 80th birthday. You
need a work experience kid to come and do them.
Good idea.
You could ask TP to come across and
come across and scan for me.
Yeah, he's probably underqualified, but you could teach him.
I've got 4 scanners. Tomorrow they might all be in action.
Have you got 4 scanners?
2 film scanners and 2 flatbeds. Yeah.
Do you have one of the Nikon, the old Coolpix Nikon ones?
No.
Remember those? They were
because I've got class.
No, the Nikon Coolpix ones were the bee's knees. Those
I remember them. Yes.
Yeah, we had them in the lab at Camera House.
Yeah.
You know what we should talk about on an episode in the next few weeks is maybe printing your landscape images. Because I went, how every few weeks I send you an email saying, what the hell are the bloody settings I'm meant to have for my Epson printer? I had another one of them today. I had to get some new ink and I put it in there, and all of a sudden the little pop-up print box just looked nothing like it used to. I'm like, what's going on? But there'd been a new driver released for the printer.
Right.
Because I couldn't get in to get the printer color management to turn off and all that kind of stuff. But it might be interesting because we get a lot of questions on workshops about printing and how do they print or where to send it to print. So maybe we can try and do not so much a technical version of it, but maybe some options of cheaper printers to buy and paper that you use and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Happy to open up that little can of worms.
Cool.
That'll be fine. All right, that's it. That's the podcast. That's episode 80 of the Down South Photo Show. You have a nice time on Bruny Island.
It's going to be cold. It's going to be cold. Yes. Jamie, my friend Jamie's coming on this one. He's co-hosting this one with me.
Is this the Jamie that I know?
This is the Jamie you know.
Yep. Say hello to him for me.
I will. I've told him to make sure he brings the change of underwear and socks for this trip.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you guys next week for episode 81. Bye for now.
See you later.